Hey, you ever heard of Dredge? Of course you don't. You play cozy games like Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley. I'm special. I play cozy games for the horrors. This is a lie. I would reincarnate as my Animal Crossing villager any day of the week. What does it look like I'm wearing? They got raincoats at Animal Crossing, I'll tell you that much. Dredge is a game that I discovered in my Lovecraftian, fear of the unknown, big spooky aquatic creatures, wow, humans are so small with flesh bags, kind of content-inspired binge that I just randomly went on. It seemed to strike the perfect balance between a kind of chill, low-stakes game and, you know, some creepy visuals, nice, weird shit. So, and that's about the best explanation I can give you of what Dredge is like, but better. Much, much, much better. Hi, my name is Sophia. I am the monster under your bed. That bed. Well, it's not my bed, it'd be your bed, but like, you get it. Anyway, I embody all the fears that your mind holds. Today's fear is fear of the unknown, because that's a Lovecraft quote. Hold on. This is my Lovecraft book. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown, H.P. Lovecraft, which makes sense for a guy that was scared of the ocean. This video will be just about everything about Dredge. We got the basic stuff like the publisher, the inspiration, different areas, the lore, obviously, the theories. God, I miss Matt Pet. So, you know, kind of like what Dredge's aesthetic actually is versus what an actual Lovecraftian aesthetic is. There is a difference, thank you very much. Basically, this is for the neurodivergent fucks that like want to know everything about a game, but they don't actually want to play the game, or they don't have enough money to, which is fear and hunger for me, because fear and hunger is like really hard. But I think it's really cool. And also I'm like flat broke right now, so like there you go. I'm also taking this cut off. There are so many cicadas outside, you know, it's the double brood season, and also that's a very kind of coat. This video will be split into 4 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first section will be some basic information about Dredge, like I said, the year that it was published, genre and all that. 2, a casual review. I feel like sometimes game reviewers are like, wow, there's a deadline. I have to play the game within that amount of time. And I had the luxury of just being like, man, I'm sailing, bud. Number 3 will be the world and lore of Dredge. There is a 3A through 3. There will be an A through F subsection to 3, which is each area of Dredge, their respective lore. There will be a 4th section for theories. I love a good theory. And 5, I lied to you. Get used to it. You don't know me. What if I was in the witness protection program? Can you imagine posting a video if you were in the witness protection program? They won't know me, and then you just get shot in the head by a mob boss. I saw your interest in OnlyFans and your critique of it. Don't talk about women in a demeaning way. Do not slut shame and then profit off of their work. The 5th section is Lovecraftian inspiration. Like I said, there are traits that make up an actual Lovecraft story, but I think so many people haven't actually read Lovecraft, which is a shame. It's very interesting, and if you're someone that really likes getting a lot of information, doesn't really care about the form of the story, 10 out of 10, kind of like Ready Player One, there's so much information. But yeah, what actual Lovecraft is versus what Dredge's Lovecraft is. Not in a bad way, just a fact. Anyway, I will be your captain. You can skip ahead in the chapters feature to the other 7 Cs and just come along for the ride. My little Bass Pro hat. So first off, some basic stats. Dredge itself is advertised as a Lovecraftian-inspired fishing game with a sinister undercurrent. You saw what they did there. You saw it too, didn't you? Because they said undercurrent. And there's currents in the water. Wow, we're so smart. It was released in 2013 by Team 17. Thank you, Team 17. Thank you for releasing Blasphemous. Publishing Blasphemous. I have a counter. How many times I bring up Blasphemous unnecessarily. So that's a 0. And it was developed by Blackstone Games, which is a New Zealand-based game studio, which is important. We will get back to that. It is categorized under adventure games, horror games, role-playing video games, which, side note, I believe that almost every single video game is a role-playing video game. Exactly. Unless you're playing as yourself, me, Sophia, interior designer extraordinaire, that's not even what I want to do when I grow up. And it's also under fishing video games, which I had no idea that last section was an actual genre, but it's a great way for, you know, middle-aged dads to bond with their kids. Hey son, I heard you like Call of Duty. You ever heard of Call of Fishy? Where's up my yeah? The basic description and genres that Dredge is categorized under are very accurate to Dredge. The sinister undercurrent isn't so prevalent that it puts Dredge in the survival horror unless you want to really like dig deep and be a little, I don't know, dissectionist. I don't even know if that's a job. If you really want to argue the point, you could say that it is a survival horror game because you can die, but whatever. But that does add an air of mystery and danger. And you know, the monsters that can sink you every now and then. You also, again, back to the role-playing thing, you play as a specific character. You are not just a fisherman, you are the fisherman. The one and only. It's her, him. I should put up a poster of Meg the Stallion. I love Meg the Stallion. It's also important to note that the main character's plotline is the main plotline of the game, and depending on what choice you make at the end, there is a good and a bad ending on to Dredge, depending on what choices you make. These outcomes, however, do not strictly end the game, because it literally will tell you, stop. We will not save past this point, which is sweet, sweet music to my completionist ears. I love doing all the little things, and yes, I do look up guides for things because I just want the accomplishment, okay? It seems kind of useless to go through every single part of a map, but nah, that's up to you. That's up to you. Dredge takes about 13 to 16 hours to complete according to GamesRadar. However, I would put the number more around 15 to 20 personally. It is very low skill. The mechanics are very user-friendly and the consequences for screwing up aren't catastrophic. Like, I mean, okay, you die, but like, we play video games here. Okay, it's not the end of the world. Once you come back, once you die, you're at your last save, all your gear is back on. Your ship, it has the exact same upgrades it had before. You don't lose anything except for, I've heard, don't quote me on this, I have strainer brain, and this was on Reddit, so I don't trust anything on Reddit, unless it proves me right, that if you have people on board, and if you crash or you die, they end up falling off, which is tragic, for real. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if they changed it. Dredge is $17.49 on all platforms, which are Xbox and PlayStation and PC and Switch, which is what I played it on. That's my Switch over there. It takes about an average of 2 gigabytes of memory for the base game, and then the DLCs, there's one full DLC called the Pale Reach. It includes a brand new area, new items, mechanics, an icebreaker, and a little doggy. There's actually another DLC that will be released this year called the Iron Rig. It's so cunty. Some people use cunt and they don't actually know what it means, okay? It means sensual femininity, and it has to be done with confidence, okay? I'm sorry, but Taylor Swift does not serve cunt. There's no cunt to be seen. The Iron Rig is supposed to very greatly expand Dredge's world. I am so hyped for this, like, oh my god, I've been looking it up like every week to see if it's released, and I keep getting let down. I bet you didn't see this part of my room coming. That is correct. It is another part. You see the connection right here with the Jiro? That's her name, yeah. Anyway, the reason why I'm here today in the corner of my room is because guess what? The Iron Rig has been announced. That is correct, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hold our applause. Let's hold our applause. Mainly because it's coming out in August 15th. So there's a lot of time for applause to be held. Me personally, I'm cowabummered because originally the launch was projected to be in the first half of 2024, but that was before everything became delayed and they instead released the Pale Reach. So Iron Rig, let's get some things out of the way. It will be $11.99 and you can buy the DLC by itself, or you can get this new fancy Dredge Collector's Edition, which I want it really, really bad, okay? And the Collector's Edition will have Dredge all on its own. It will have a fancy case that is the Book of the Depths, which is neat. A fish species notebook, a fancy collector's box, a double-sided coin, which is 6 centimeters in diameter. I don't know why that's important, but they included it, so I'll mention it. A message from the developer, and it's really cool the way that it's shown. It's in a bottle. It's like a little message in a bottle. I love that. A sign of ruin replica, which is 10 centimeters cubed. I'm reading from my iPad, and my iPad says 10 centimeters cubed. I don't know. You will also get a double-sided poster. It's one of the promotional images of the aberrated sailfish in front of the lighthouse, and another shot that's more interesting that's focused around Blackstone Isle, which I think is neat. The Iron Rig will be more dredging focused. I know that it is called Dredge, but technically it's mostly a fishing game. I'm going to read a part of the official announcement. As the drilling operation of the rig intensifies, something stirs in the primordial depths, Black Salt teases. A dark liquid begins to seep into familiar and once safe areas of the game, transforming them into perilous zones. This is great news because it means that you can go back and play the main areas and they're going to be all fun. I'm considering completely restarting the game
just for funsies. I don't want the cool, I have a cooler side of the back of my iPad, but let me just, okay, I'm happy. Kind of. Players must carefully assess the impact of this mysterious substance on local fish species, unveiling peculiar specimens from the abyssal depths as they go about adding more than 50 new fish to the game's encyclopedia. 50 new fish, you hear that? Oh my god, it's Christmas morning in August. Global warming. The Iron Rig expansion also adds a new tier of fishing equipment as well as new characters to interact with, new hazards to overcome, and new world events and lore to uncover. What I'm hearing is that we're basically getting Dredge 1.5, which is great, fantastic. There's also, Black Salt didn't just release a announcement, they also released a trailer, which provides a bit more context, because I know that I just kind of gave that announcement and explained it. So, this is what it's all about. There is a guy that works for the Iron Haven Corporation. The Iron Haven Corporation is drilling for oil. We know oil here, okay? We're Americans. We're Midwesterners. We love oil. And the guy proceeds to lose a part of the equipment, which is this little drill bit. I'm assuming that the drill bit will be part of what's connected to the ship, and that'll be the upgrades. And as time goes on, you build up the base. They've mentioned building up a base of operations. To me, that reads increasing like storage capacity maybe in the rig. I'm assuming that the rig will become a base of operations of some kind, and that you'll be able to attach the drill bit. It'll probably be similar to how the Pale Reach worked, where you had to find parts of an icebreaker and then you connected the icebreaker and you could unlock more areas. Anyway, the guy that works for the Iron Haven Corporation, in the trailer, you eventually present him with fish that are covered in a dark substance. I'm assuming this is oil or like a metaphor for oil, and he seems happy in the trailer. This will open the world of Dredge more, because clearly there is some sort of resource. It could be oil, but they refer to it as a dark liquid, and it's transforming things into perilous zones. So that could be just oil, or it could be that the aberrations are naturally causing the oil to become worse. I will touch on this in my theory section of, are the aberrations naturally occurring? Are they from a different dimension, maybe? Who knows? Another interesting note in this is players must carefully assess the impact of this mysterious substance on local fish species. It could just be, oh, there are new fish, but I think that it's also a chance to understand the lore and the world of Dredge better, because it's saying, literally, assessing the impact of this mysterious substance. I don't know why my hand up is. Let's go. So it could be that it's kind of encouraging players to figure out, is this from the aberrated power or is this something else? I don't know a lot about oil drilling. I don't know how accurate this is to 1947, which again, I don't know if I mentioned this, but that's when Dredge takes place. That'll be in the theory section. I'll explain it. I think this will be a fantastic addition to Dredge. I think that allowing a game that is focused on progressing through areas, getting what you need, and then going on to the next, by adding more stuff to go back to, Dredge is really like becoming more and more of a world that I want to return to constantly, right? Because to me, originally, it was like, oh, I got all the fish. Like, that was my goal. It was like, okay, do the plot and everything, but get all the fish, and that's kind of it. I'm really excited for this DLC. It sounds like it's really going to upgrade Dredge a lot. The story, I don't think will be as interesting. I think it will kind of crazy parallel right here, but hear me out. If you've seen Sherlock Holmes, the newer version with Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr., there's a lot I noticed. There is a huge connection between like the Industrial Revolution happening and how people saw that as magic. Just watching the movie, you might not connect it, but like if you notice, a lot of paranoia is building up, a lot of fear is being encouraged by the main villain who wanted to take over the colonies, the US of A. We would not have taken that a second time. Even though it was kind of smart how he did it. He was like, they're weakened by the Civil War, you know, like maybe this will do it. I don't know. This would be an interesting parallel history. But anyway, I'm getting distracted. At the very end of the movie, Sherlock explains all of his magic was just science and chemistry specifically. I think that that is very interesting, those parallels of setting that movie during the time period of the Industrial Revolution. Obviously, the Industrial Revolution had already happened, but new improvements were taking place as the 18th century progressed in the 19th century, you know? The Industrial Revolution never really stopped, in my historian's daughter opinion. I think that's what DREDGE, well, Black Salt Studios in DREDGE. I think that's the direction that DREDGE is heading. That idea, sorry, not the direction, of this not understood energy and technology and science in the real world. And in DREDGE, that could be the aberrated stuff, the magic, whatever. As time goes on, we make efforts to understand this with the technology that we have. Take, for example, electricity. You know, it was just kind of a spark, and then we figured out, oh, we can use this to power our homes, and then eventually to power computers, power my phone right here. And in DREDGE, maybe it's this aberrated substance could be used for war. It could just be super powered oil. Honestly, I'd be interested if they took that route. Because honestly, if there was super oil, we would never solve the power crisis. If you didn't know, we're running out of fossil fuels. We are going to hit an energy crisis. And if we found super oil, it would never be solved. They just try to recreate super oil. In terms of lore, like I said, I don't think it's going to add too much. I think it's just more of expanding the world, which you could say is lore. But I feel like lore is past things, and this is things that are happening in the present. And I think it will complicate things in terms of, or explain where the aberrated beings come from. Again, in my theory section, I will go into this in detail, but I believe that they are from another dimension. But anyway, this was more than what I wanted. I thought that it was just going to be this one little area, but no, they're just like, hey, bunch of 50 new fish, more upgrades, more people. Like, that is so cool. And I want the collector's edition. I want it so bad. Now that we have cleared up the Iron Rig DLC, we'll finish the rest of the video. I'm really glad that you got to see my hair when it's like nice. Back to you, 4 feet away. The other kind of DLC is called Blackstone Key. If you're starting out, it's good. Otherwise, it's pretty much useless. DREDGE has gotten very positive reviews. Nobody has been like, a AAA game releases a game and it's not even finished. Like, people were just like, yes. Literally that. They put a little thumbs up in there. Yes. It also got nominated for a lot of awards and it didn't win any because 2023 was a great year for games. I'm lying. I'm a hater. I wanted it to win things, okay? I don't care about vampires. I'm not sexually attracted to Asterion from Baldur's Gate 3. I know Baldur's Gate 3 I've heard is a very great game. Okay, 10 out of 10, whatever. I'm allowed to hate. Now that we've gotten the nuts and bolts out of the way, let's get to the hashtag casual review. Let me preface this by saying a God is good, sky is blue, grass is yummy kind of fact. I'm not really good at video games. I don't know if it's the lack of common sense or like the ADHD or like the ADHD causing the lack of common sense, but I have a really hard time picking up on things that like those darn neurotypicals have such a good time. They can pick it up real easy. That being said, DREDGE didn't screw me up too bad. I did foolishly spend all my improvements on the rods in the beginning because I didn't know there were other sections, so I was really slow. Besides that, I didn't face any consequences for my mental illness, which is a huge change from the public school system. I'm lying to you. I was raised by wolves. You don't know me. You don't know me. I'm not just one of your many toys. You don't own me. Saying I can't go with other boys. Don't tell me what to do. No. Okay, I'm done. Yes, it's a little different. My squishmallow thing, I don't know if it's a squishmallow, it's squishy. Moved the camera, but whatever. It is really easy to upgrade your boat to make money in DREDGE, which for a cozy game I feel like is oddly kind of like rare, because normally what ends up happening is there's like a time dependent quest and you like have to grind. That's just my opinion, but DREDGE never does you like that, okay? It takes you out to dinner and it pays for dinner, of course, and you have a lovely conversation and it smiles at you across the table. And it takes you back to your apartment. Fucks you. If you're constantly catching fish on your travels, which you can do if you have a net behind you, which is like an expected upgrade that the game expects you to get, you're gonna be fine. It's also relaxing, which is kind of crazy for a game where you literally cannot leave the dock at night. Well, I mean, you can. It's not advised by anyone, but I do it all the time because I'm a rebel. Because there's big bad monsters that will. DREDGE is also a good game to play with a video essay on in the background, which is a shame if you take into account how good the soundtrack is and like the little sound effects, because the waves sound like waves, me when I know what water sounds like. It doesn't have a lot of text, so you can really ingest the message of a video essay or your little audiobooks, whatever you want to do, music, in the background while you're on your
nice little adventure. The ambiance and the explorational aspect were my favorite parts of the game, as well as the larger implication of Dredge's world, because I love a little game theory. God, I miss Map Bat. Every area is unique and is home to different types of flora and fauna. And by that I mean fish and crabs and other crustaceans. Are crabs crustaceans? I mean, they have to be. They have a crust. By the way, if I say fish as a general term, it's an accident, and I do mean to say creatures or animals or something like that. Sorry. Every new fish that you catch gives you a kind of sense of pride, and it's obvious how much thought was put into the designs for the different creatures, especially the aberrated ones, because the normal ones are actual fish that exist. Yes, they do look that weird in real life, but the aberrated ones, they were probably just like, guys, just go crazy. Just have some fun. And they were just like, okay. Off we go. I'm gonna make a demented little thing. And that's how I was born. That's also the job that I want to do. I would like to design games. My particular favorites are the decorator crab, the lumpy mackerel, the shard ray, the void eye, the radiant squid, the blood snapper, the medusa octopus slay, nightwing catfish, which by the way, just now I have this vision of, you know, Nightwing, one of the Robins as a mermaid, but the second half is like a catfish, and that was very funny to me. Ha ha ha. And the defaced skate, which is like a band in my head. And they're really popular with skaters because they break their like skateboards and then they buy them a new one free of charge because they're really cool. These fish are so bizarre and they're weird and I love them very much. So the areas in Dredge are the Marrows, Devil's Spine. I said it right. I normally say Devil's Spire because there's a lighthouse, a volcano, and it goes like whing, and it looks like a spire. That's fine. I get it. I love the imagery. Stellar Basin, Gale Cliffs, Pale Reach if we're counting the DLC, and Twisted Strand. And they each have distinct ecosystems and aesthetics to the point where you wonder where they're so close to each other in the middle of the ocean. Because there's no way that a mangrove forest like Twisted Strand is just in the middle of the ocean. It needs fresh water. It's fine. Whatever. Dredge's animals also did get the thumbs up from my biologist, ornithologist, ecologist, girl boss, mother, who said, quote, "Los que hicieron este juego son biólogos, saben lo que están haciendo." If you don't know Spanish and you didn't pay attention to your Spanish class, I'm not gonna blame you because the way they teach Spanish is really, really bad. Translation: the people that made this game are biologists. They know what they were doing. And also, despite not being a horror game, Dredge has creeped me out because what do you mean a void eye? What do you mean the fish is in a bunch of ribbons? Like what do you mean it's pulling itself apart? What do you mean there's a vortex? What? And I actually did discover new fear because of Dredge. I don't have any phobias, but appears I do now, which are crabs with abnormally long legs. I'll put up some examples here if I have the courage, but just know, this bitch, it made me violently repulsed by limbs of any kind. Hatred. I love it. I eat it up. I take her to my penthouse and I freak it. All by myself. Like I said, huge soft spot for Lovecraftian horror. And again, Dredge does not fall into Lovecraftian horror, but the pop culture aesthetic that we ascribe to Lovecraftian horror works for Dredge extremely well. There's a screenshot I took that really encapsulates the main message of Dredge's horror, which is a small horrified human looking upon a horror beyond belief. And every time you go out at night, you're subjected to hallucinations, monsters that I thought were friends because I honked my horn at the giant overgrown like angler fish thing and it honked back. I thought we were besties, but no, I freaked out and I ran out of rocks. Anyway, you see that and then you just gotta move on. There's a giant snake terrorizing a community in the cliffs. Catch your eels and just keep going. You've seen more than any other human in this world, and you know what you can do about it? Absolutely nothing. Sell your fucked up fish. Capitalist by narrative. Kind of like the Doomed by the narrative stuff that Tumblr's like milking dry because most of their user base, the only character defining experience they've ever had is being bullied for shipping the founding fathers. Except this time you play as a bitchless capitalistic fisherman. I know a lot of people like that. The only critiques that I have for Dredge regard the scope of player interaction within the game, because once you've completed the quest parentheses for a character, you can still talk to them, but they don't say anything that you haven't heard before. It just doesn't make sense to keep that option open if all you're going to be reminded of is that you are playing a video game. And there's also a weird like Animal Crossing bit in Dredge where at the beginning of the story you go through a big storm and then you crash at the Marrows and then the mayor's like, "Oh my god,
it's you, the fisherman. Take this boat, go crazy, pay back your debt, and then we'll use it to like revitalize our economy. So you do it and the mayor congratulates you. Apparently your totally consensual contributions to the town make it pretty, and they brought in a lot of tourism, and you don't really get to see that. If you leave the Marrows and you come back, there will be more buildings and they're a little nicer, but like it's not noticeable. I think it would be neat if you could interact with more people as the Marrows gets nicer. New tourists come in and they're like, oh yeah, I'm an archaeologist that was studying devil's spine, something like that. And I understand that that can lead to problems regarding the actual rules of the world. How well known is this area and stuff? I understand why they weren't added, because that can cause a lot of issues, but I would just like to feel more of a connection to the people and the world on the personal level. If my interactions with Dredge's world matter, why doesn't it feel like they matter? You know what I mean? You do interact with people and you do impact their lives. And I get that that isn't the main focus of Dredge. Again, I understand why this doesn't happen. This is more of like a subjective kind of thing. It's just like once you've done your heroic bit for a random person, they don't matter. And it's kind of anime protagonist coded, not gonna lie, how it's just the world revolves around your choices and nothing else. I don't even, for the record, this poster's here because it has my girl Momo on here. She's even blocked my bedpost. That's so sexist. But like, I'm out of it. Overall though, Dredge was a wholly enjoyable experience. It breathes life into the Lovecraftian horror genre that normally only exists in survival horror. The games that I'm referring to survival horror are higher skill, and Dredge is very low skill. It's fun and it's creepy, and I info dumped to my parents about it. And that's where I would rate it. That's right under, I made a PowerPoint presentation about it and I have merch of it. And right over, I looked up fan art of it. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. Anyway, let's move on to the lore section. This is the best part for me recording, because I get to relive my childhood fantasy of telling people about my hyperfixation's whack lore. Like, this is literally 5th grade me's ultimate fantasy, except now I'm talking about like boats and like squids instead of not children's souls stuffed in animatronics. For the record, I remember when the Matt Pat FNAF Theory playlist was 4 videos long. What is it, Pepperidge Farm? Yeah, Pepperidge Farms Remembers. So Dredge basically has 2 stories. There is a pre-amnesia story and a post-amnesia story. That's correct, there is amnesia, but the amnesia is not caused because of like purposely angsty fandom trauma or those darn K-drama trucks. It's because of the horrors, capital H. Like H.P. Lovecraft, oh my god. So pre-amnesia goes like this. Fisherman proposes to a woman whose name starts with Julie, and they get hitched. Oh, by the way, there's a bunch of evidence to point to the fact that it is Julie, but it's never explicitly said in game. It's just kind of like, yeah, we know. And in his wife's honor, the fisherman renames the boat from Ocean's Riches to Julie. Also, I love it when people relate their loved ones to like objects that they use every day. Like, that's good objectification right there. Me when I'm a cursed necklace instead of a sexualized version of myself, 10 out of 10, I tell you. However, the sea demands superstition, and the fisherman obeys, and he does a fancy renaming ritual because you can't rename the boat without removing all evidence of the previous name from the boat. And Julie, who, if I'm correct, and the fandom is correct, and we probably are, is the only named character in the game, she says, nah, I'd win, and she keeps a keychain that says Ocean's Riches on it. How did she get a keychain for like her husband's little boat? She did not in fact win. Okay, the ship has several little accidents and the fisherman comes up with excuses to not have Julie on the boat, which, by the way, I think this is because of that old superstition that says like, women can't be on boats, they're bad luck, even a miniature one. I've always thought that's the most bullshit superstition I'd ever heard of, because, hold on, let me put my feminist hat on. It's probably because sailors of the olden times never saw women because they were away for months and years. There'd be internal arguments about Jerry saying, she's mine, and Obadiah breaking his nose because she showed me her ankles. And you know, it'd be a lot funnier if they weren't making the female passengers wildly uncomfortable. I genuinely hate the superstition. It is stupid, and it's literally just because some guys couldn't keep it in their pants and they wanted to, you know, fuck llamas. And also they thought that narwhals were mermaids. Also, crazy that you tell your newlywed wife that you're just gonna not see her for most of the day and night. Like, what? The fisherman sucks. And in that process of being away from his wife, the fisherman and his crew dredge up a casket. Now let me ask you, dear viewer, if you found a casket at the bottom of the ocean, what would you do?
If your answer was to crack that bitch open, you win the award for worst fisherman ever. And you're right, you get a cookie. How are you gonna abandon your wife and then pull up like a coffin from the depths? Like, I don't get it. The casket contains a little tome called the Book of the Depths. I have Book of the Deep in my script, but I'm pretty sure it's Book of the Depths, and that makes more sense. And I feel like, again, another hint as to what not to do. I'm just saying. The book contains magical spells and belongs to the ocean and its power. By removing it, the fisherman actually causes all of the fish to become aberrated and the monstrous in-game creatures to form. Most of them. Somehow. Kind of. It's complicated. Julie falls overboard and is lost to the ocean. I feel that this is very fitting. You know, the ocean's most treasured possession for the fishermen. I don't know. I don't even know if you love Julie like that. It's unclear if the Book of the Depths causes this or if it was the traumatic event of like opening an object of immeasurable power. But the fisherman instantaneously loses his memories and develops a split personality called the Collector. It's implied that he might have left the Dredge quadrant. I'm gonna call it the Dredge Ocean Quadrant, the DOQ. It might be that he left the DOQ and explored the ocean, learns a bunch of powers, or he stays within the DOQ and he's just kind of like chilling and learning stuff there. And he does that for 20 years. And now the game can begin. Yes, that is correct. Everything that I just told you is inferred from messages in bottles that are kind of littered around Dredge and some item descriptions. Keep those bottles in your comically oversized pocket for later. And now we get to meet you, a totally different fisherman who doesn't have any wife and no guilt to speak of. Gay shit not to have a wife in my opinion. And you take your little boat, which by the way, I made a little 3D model for my class. And I cool. I also made this, hold on. Look at that. And then you come back to the Marrows for a job and then your shit gets rocked. The mayor of Big Marrow, again, offers you a shitty little boat. You pay back your debt. That little bit serves as the game's tutorial. And a gentle reminder that the mayor and Tom Nook are actually really nice guys, okay? It's interest-free. It's a low amount. Put me in Animal Crossing and I will be set for life free from capitalism. You're then free to do whatever you want except go out at night. If you do, a mysterious magenta fog envelops you and it does one of 4 things. At a low level, it causes rocks to randomly pop up in front of you. I really like these. I think it's a really cool effect. At a middle level, it creates eyes all around you or crows that obscure your view and steal whatever fish are on your ship. Or things get really, really bad and tentacles are something that just pa-ching! This fog actually can be avoided if you turn away from it. But if you're starting off, you don't know that. And also, you're not fast enough to turn. You probably don't know how to do it very well. So not recommended that you go out at night at the beginning. However, there are some fish that can only be caught at night. So fuck them. After that, the story branches out a lot in ways that don't affect the main plot line. So I'm gonna stick with Julie's story. That's right, it is Julie's story. It is not the fisherman's story. It is his wife, who has never done anything wrong at all, except scoff at outdated superstition. That's my dog in the ring. That's my boy girl. Early on into the game, you meet an NPC that lives on Blackstone Isle called the Collector, who says he will grant you special powers for every relic that you bring him. There's 5 relics, 1 for each area pretty much, and they can only be reached once you have completed the quest line for the corresponding area. They're also all of Julie's belongings, and once you've given the Collector 4 of the relics, and you've talked to the lighthouse keeper as much as possible, along with completing a quest line with the old mayor, your split personality will reveal itself to be the Collector. You are him, he is you. Wow, shocker, gasp. You come to terms with the fact that this game is all your fault. Your pride caused you to pull out the Book of the Depths from a casket that you found in the middle of the ocean. Like, that's really sus, bro. And your selfishness brought about monsters and the death of your wife. Once you have all the relics, you have 2 options. You give the last one to the Collector or to the lighthouse keeper. If you give them to the Collector, you get the bad ending. He instructs you to take him to a certain area, and he uses the relics and the Book of the Dead? This is not ancient Egyptian mythology, but the Book of the Depths to summon Julie and fucking Cthulhu, I guess. But hey, Julie's back. Woo, Julie. I guess it was a 2-for-1 deal. It's kind of like, it'd be funny if it's like that theory that Peach is actually like married to Bowser, and every time she is kidnapped, it's her like just going back, and Mario's like, Mamma mia, I must save a Peach. And it's just him being delusional. I think that's very funny. I think that's what's happening here. Yeah. Yeah. Also, interesting note, you find these little messages, remember the back pocket bottles, some of which have notes that Julie wrote while y'all were married. Obviously, that's how you find out about the pre-amnesia stuff. But after the fisherman pulls up the Book of the Depths, capital T, capital D, she writes two undated notes. The first says that she has been cold for years, and while she didn't expect the fisherman to write, she wants to know how he's doing. The second says that she's finally found him and has been made whole again, probably referring to the relics being collected, and that she must be thrown back. Put this in your back pocket to replace those bottles. If you let the collector use the relics to bring Julie back, the deity, which is again Cthulhu, which we will talk about later, pops up, and Greater Marrow is seen burning, and you've ended the world. You've doomed the world to an eternity of hell because you couldn't stand the fact that you were not with your wife. I think that's interesting. I don't think that the whole like choose the world or the one person, the trolley problem is ever done really well in media because it's really up to the individual to choose how it's going to happen, and there's not one singular solution. But I think this is a good way of showing it to an extreme. You know, it's like that whole like the hero will not save you if it means saving the world, but the villain will. And it's kind of like depending on what you choose, you are the hero or the villain. I just think that's kind of interesting. And you actually die in the good ending. If you talk to the lighthouse keeper, she'll lead you to the same spot that the collector did, which implies that that is a spot where you dredged up the casket and that Julie was lost. You throw the relics and the Book of the Depths back into the water, finally putting the ocean at peace. But a price must still be paid. A wormish leviathan slices through the water and swallows your little boat whole. The camera pans up to the aurora borealis glowing in the sky, and all is well. Greater Marrow, and by extension the world, is safe. I think that was pretty cool. Anyway, yes, that is the main story of Dredge. Like I said, there are 5 main areas in Dredge, and each one has its own mini quest to complete. And these mini quests add on to the world and story of Dredge, and they take up the main bulk of the game. They gradually ramp up in difficulty if you're normal, but if you're like me and you wish endless pain upon the evolved spawn of Satan wandering the Gale Cliffs. I'm gonna go through the areas, including the Pale Reach, according to difficulty, since the Pale Reach doesn't contribute to the main story and there are no relics to collect there. And also the relics can be collected in any order. My order is the Marrows, Stellar Basin, the Pale Reach, Twisted Strand, Gale Cliffs, then Devil's Spine. But Dredge kind of nudges the player to go to the areas in this order. It does this by making the Marrows fishable with shallow, coastal, and oceanic gear, which is what you need to completely fish in both Gale Cliffs and Stellar Basin. Also, it's clockways, why I did it that way. Whoopsie daisy, sorry for following my human instincts. The player makes the logical conclusion that the mangrove and volcanic gear probably cost more, and that those areas are probably more difficult, which is a fair assumption, especially considering that the mayor who gives you info on each area is like, Twisted Strand, very tricky, you need good navigation, directional sense. Devil's Spine is very tricky. So I don't blame people for assuming that those areas are, of course, more difficult, but in my personal opinion, that doesn't mean as much. Devil's Spine is definitely the most difficult area. Twisted Strand is not. Also, fun fact, every area is based around a different biome, like in Minecraft. So like, you know, the glacier, there's mangrove forests in New Zealand, even the bioluminescent creatures in Stellar Basin all have basis in reality. I will end up talking about this in each area's individual section. So let us embark and take a little tour of the world of Dredge. Welcome to the Marrows. The Marrows is the main hub of Dredge. It's not very unique, but it is the starting area and it sets the tone for what is normal. As the other areas become more and more unrealistic, as time goes on, I'm sorry, Mongals literally cannot exist in the middle of the ocean. Like, that's just a fact. You meet the mayor, the lighthouse keeper, and the collector here. And side tangent, I love how they introduce the collector. The fisherman first sees him looking through a porthole, which can be interpreted as the fisherman looking through a porthole from the outside and his reflection staring back at him, because the collector's literally like his Jackson. It will fly under a first-time player's radar, but like if you go back and you notice it, you're like, oh, that's so smart. It's just such a clever touch. I just like, I love it. Also, because when you go to Blackstone Isle, you think the collector's standing in a doorway. No, he's not. He's standing in front of a mirror. It's the frame of a mirror. It's not a song. There's not much else to say about the Marrows besides that there's a quest about setting up a home for the builder. The racist. At Steel Point, which is like these 3 big islands just north of the Marrows, which honestly I feel like could have had their own little side quest kind of, but no. I understand why they didn't. They'd have to make it another area and put in more work for it. There's like a little side quest. You give aberrated fish to the fishmonger, who disappears for like a whole day. You give a belt buckle to a grieving father. You turn a fellow dock worker into a zombie. This is because you gave him aberrated fish and he ate it. So why was the fishmonger fine? Like, the lighthouse keeper is the only like truly really important character of the Marrows story-wise, as interacting with her gives you more insights to the lore, world building, and the good ending. You can only unlock it if you talk to her a lot. She's a cool, spooky lady. She's cool. I love her. Want to be like her. Each area in Dredge has these altars, aka shrines. They call them shrines sometimes, I think, but like, shrines are where you worship, altars are where you offer. Like, did you take religion class? Anyway, so each altar has like a specific type of like theme around it. You give it the specific fish/creatures that it demands, and they give you a super duper special aberrated item in return. The Marrows have unarguably the best the best piece of gear, which is the sinew spindle. Yes, queen. So that's sinew. It allows you to fish coastally and in the shallows while taking up like 2 spaces of your cargo hold. By the way, if you're good at Tetris, you will be good at Dredge because there's like a limited amount of space in your cargo hold. You gotta rotate objects and everything. Highly recommend going after it in the first area. It's really easy to get because it's the cod altar. You just need to catch cod, which are very common. It's definitely the best equipment in the game, very easy to achieve. It's not clear what IRL New Zealand area the Marrows is based around. It's just home. Anyway, onward to Stellar Basin. It's like hella chill here, dude. Like, as long as you don't go over the middle of the basin, like, it's so cool. I can't do this voice. My buddy Luke did that once and he got smacked all the way to the spine. Do you think that they call Devil's Spine the spine in Dredge? I think they should. Stellar Basin is probably my favorite area because the bioluminescent fish in the game, in the fishing spots, there's normally just kind of like shadows. But since it's nighttime and the animals that you're fishing are bioluminescent, they will actually like move, which is just a nice little detail. Like, look at them, they're swimming. It's definitely the easiest area to navigate as long as you like make a big loop around the middle. There's no fog in Stellar Basin unless you're on the outside of these 3 like little islands that make up the main area. The creature in the middle, which I'm going to refer to as a water sarlacc because that's like literally what it is. It's situated right under the next relic, so you have to complete the main quest line to get it because otherwise it's just gonna pew! The main quest line for a Stellar Basin is gathering samples for the researcher at the old fortress, which, why do you need an old fortress? Like, I'm sure that there's like some reason why there's an old fortress, but like, don't even matter. Not gonna even think about it. And she studies the creature, and then you give her parts for the generator that powers up this like device that puts the water sarlacc to sleep. I think that it's like psychically broadcasting images of animals that have been like handicapped by barnacles, like covering their eyes or making it impossible to move. Obviously it works because, you know why? The water sarlacc is an evolved barnacle. That's correct. Yes, it did evolve from the spore. There are these obelisks around Dredge that if you go a little and you go up to them, they will give you a vision of the past. The Stellar Basin obelisk tells you the little story about the little spore that could, about a spore that was in the central area. All the other spores are being eaten by fish because, and the spore floats to the bottom and begins to grow. The obelisk also implies that there's some powerful force under the actual ground of the ocean of Dredge that is causing the aberrations, but that makes literally no sense when you take into account all the other evidence that we have for the reasons why everything is aberrated. And B, I think it's more metaphorical. It's more of like the dangers underneath, like Davy Jones' locker. Like, I don't know. I just don't think it's that. I don't think it's that deep. I need to rewatch Parts of the Caribbean. Me and my family, we watched the like first movie recently, and it was a banger, and I need to watch the other 2 because it's a trilogy. I don't care about the other 4th and 5th movies. They don't matter. Stellar Basin also has the element of any perfect game, which is a pettable dog no importance of the actual story. Like, you don't need to pet the dog, but you can. You won't get any, like, buffs, but you can pet the dog. So, like, in, like, Blasphemous, like, when you can pet, there's, like, a dog in Albero called the Petable One, and his whole reason for existing is to be pet by the Penitent One. I'm anything if not consistent. You give the dog to the researcher, they become besties. That's pretty much it. Stellar Basin's altar is shark-based, and it gives you the Viscera Crane, which lets you fish Hadal and abyssal creatures, which are fish at very, very, very low depths. Why did I say fish like fish? Viscera Crane is mid. It's really inconvenient, like the shape of it is. By the time that you're in Stellar Basin, you can probably get the Fathomless Winch, which is far superior. And also, one of the sharks you need is like all the way up in Devil's Spine, which is way further along if you're following either my version or the game's recommended version of travel. So it's just not worth it. Also, side note about the things that you can get at the altars, there are obviously fishing rods and crab nets and things that you can buy that you don't need to do any quest lines for. And to me, it's like, okay, I'm doing a quest line, I'm going to all these different areas, I'm going on a hunt capital H for these. Why aren't they the most overpowered objects in the game? They're just not. They're less powerful than some of the objects you can buy, which doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why Blackstone did that, but whatever. Stellar Basin was most probably inspired by the Bay of Islands in New Zealand, which is an area with a lot of bioluminescent algae in the water. So when you kind of like move the water, the algae is like, oh, and it lights up. So basically everything that you saw in Avatar is in fact real. My mom actually went on a rant about that after we watched Avatar 2. She was like, you know, people only want to see these alien planets with all these cool species, and there are just as cool species on Earth. And I was like, yes, queen. Tell me more, actually. Like, I'm actually really interested. I actually kind of might have shed a tear. I can't remember if it was Avatar 1 or 2, but I was like, I will never be bioluminescent. So, could swallow glow stick and see what happens, but I haven't heard good reviews from that. Anyway, moving on. Welcome to the Pale Reach. By the way, I'm really sorry if the camera angle is like subtly different sometimes, because my phone is currently propped up on this like it's propped up on a prescription pill bottle filled with nickels and coins I pick up on top of a camera stand for an actual camera. The Pale Reach is like when Great Aunt Mildred reaches out of her coffin and touches you with her cold, stinky hand, and you feel fear for the first time in your 5-year-old life. As far as DLCs go, the Pale Reach is pretty solid, genuinely. It functions just like any other area in Dredge, which I thought was a great idea. Like, you don't need to do something completely different every time you release a DLC. You just have to keep people coming back. My personal opinion. It has all the base stuff for other areas, a extensive exploration, an altar that provides you with capital S special fishing gear, a big bad that you can keep away with a little work. By the way, each area's like big bad it's very different depending on each area. Like, sometimes you can just get rid of them completely. Sometimes they're pretty nasty. It varies depending on what area you're in, but the Pale Reach has a good balance of, well, it'll attack you after a certain amount of time. You just gotta keep it fed. But the Pale Reach does differ in that it implies that the entire world of Dredge has aberrated creatures. Kind of. I feel like I've been saying this a lot throughout the video, but it's the truth. Dredge doesn't have any hard and fast rules, unlike my penis. It's similar to the real world, you know. Some enemies can be completely defeated, some aren't fish, and sometimes there's a Mongol in the middle of the ocean. The central quest in the Pale Reach is to find these special pickaxes to break out the souls, I think, of an old fishing crew and some hunks of ice. Every time a soul is rescued, one of the eyes of this enormous sea creature, whose horn actually makes up the top of the glacier, is closed, and it is eventually put to sleep. It does presumably have 4 perfectly other fine eyes on the other side of its face, but whatever, it doesn't even matter. Anyway, every time you talk to a soul, it tells you of their ill-fated journey. There's a ship that was exploring the area, and then the captain could hear a heart beating under the ice, and then these other 3 members of the crew started hearing a heart beating under the ice. The captain gets them all together and it's like, let's go on an adventure. And then they all end up freezing. That's the kind of part where they don't really explain. They just, how it happened. They're just kind of like, I don't even know. It just happened. Somehow they ended up like May from Overwatch, okay? I hate May from Overwatch. I was really into Overwatch, and I feel like that poster would be great on my wall, capital W, but it was so old. Like, it was from like 2016 that it was like ripping and tearing at the edges, which other posters I have are, but it just had to leave, and I'm really sad. I really want it. It had the OG cast. So these souls have been in the ice for 50 years. Over 50 years, my bad. All the information about the Pale Reach as an area is extremely confusing, especially everything that the crew members tell you. You literally never hear a heart beating anywhere else in Dredge, nor do you hear a voice being like, there's riches. You just gotta find the heart. Like, what? I want untold riches. However, I would never fall for this. I am better than them. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the Pale Reach in the lore section since there are so many it opened up a whole can of worms, and then it was like, I don't even know what type of worms are in there. So let's get the rest of its quirks out of the way. What does he get? The one enemy in the Pale Reach is called the narwhal, and it is a narwhal in the same way that a narwhal is a mermaid. Like, I still can't believe that sailors were so sexually frustrated that they got this out of this. Like, I don't even know. It's pretty easy to avoid as long as you sacrifice some of your catch now and then, which isn't a big deal considering it's so easy to make money in Dredge. And if you need any fish for a mini quest, you can catch it again. The bigger threat is the fog, which can still affect you within the like span of the glacier, which, by the way, I don't remember this happening when I first played the Pale Reach DLC. I didn't think that there was any inside it. And then the second time that I played Dredge, it did. So I don't know if they changed that because they're probably, oh, this is way too easy. Or if like, I'm insane. That is also a possibility. The altar in the Pale Reach gives you the second best item in the game. I'm taking these off. They hurt my head. Pit vipers are low-key like gas. Because they actually cover like your whole vision. I love pit vipers. I don't care that they make me look stupid. I love them because they are ugly and stupid. Pale Reach gives you the second best item in the game, the Radiant Trawl Net, which I kind of imagine to be like glittery fishnets, which is really cute. This bad boy or girl catches oceanic, shallow, and coastal and ice fish, all for the price of 4 frozen hearts. I personally think that it would have been really cool if within the frozen hearts they put like a faded outline of an actual human heart, but that's me. It's still cool. It's whatever. The frozen hearts are gained by breaking the members of the crew out of the ice, and after completing the Pale Reach's main plotline of, again, breaking them out, you get this thing called the Aurus Anchor, which conjures up a 2-way portal from wherever you are that you've dropped it to Blackstone Isle. It's very handy if you're like, okay, I want to like sell all my catch, sell stuff to the trader who's only in the marrows, and then just pop over to wherever area that I was in the first place. The only problem is that it does induce panic. Panic, by the way, is Dredge's mechanic of like craziness. So be careful when using it, maybe like sleep for 2 hours, but if it takes that amount of time to travel there, I don't know why you wouldn't just travel there. You're probably feeling kind of chilly after that icy excursion. Well, why don't you take a trip down to